welcome to another episode of the Influential Nonprofit. I am here with a very special guest today, coming all the way from Dubai. This is Ali Horriyat with, I want to say this right because we just talked about this, compassion, you're going to have to teach me again. Compassiviste.
Compassiviste. Yes,
Compassiviste.
compassiviste.
Compassiviste,
Exactly.
which is compassionate activist, right? And
Mhm.
this is the organization that you founded. We're going to dive into that, talk all about that. First, though, I always start with this question. And you have a pretty interesting story we're going to get into. Before I get into that, I like to start with this question, which is, tell me something you're really proud of that you don't get to brag about a lot.
Confidence.
Say that again.
My confidence.
Okay.
I'm very confident. Sometimes it may not be the best trait, but I don't brag about it. But I have no fears when I pursue things. I believe I can achieve, and I go for it. So that's a trait that I don't brag about, but I know deep inside is and keeps me going. It's the confidence that allows me to say, I'm going to take this on. I'm going to
Yeah.
pursue this.
And
I'm going to
it's
follow through,
right.
and I'm not scared to do
Where do
it.
you think that came from? That, because what I hear is this very confident, grounded inner knowing, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think it comes from my whole life experience. I mean, um, I grew up, boarding school at home, started university when I was 16 and lived by myself, and did a lot of schooling, had a lot of different life experiences, became very successful at a very young age in my 20s. And I think all of those successes continuously, getting good grades or, finishing my academic journey, uh, being popular in school in the sense of being on multiple sports teams and things, all these achievements that I kept putting myself into paying off, built the confidence in a sense and the education. And
Mhm.
obviously the travels. I mean, I've traveled to over 164 countries and, exploring
Wow.
yeah.
That's
And when
something
I
to
say,
brag about as well.
well, it is, yeah. And I tell people, it wasn't layovers or anything like that. It was actually me spending at least a week in every one of those places because I love to travel. And I think it brings a lot of education on its own. And so
Yeah.
all of those things together, and living for about 22 years in Toronto, Canada, just north of where you are, well, northeast. But it was a it's a very multicultural city, and you get to meet a lot of different people from all walks of life. It's a very immigrant city, so you get to see all sides of things, people, baggages and goodness people bring with them to the city. So you learn a lot, you become just this inclusive person, you learn to take in all of that energy coming from all different places and grow with it. And I think the confidence built in just being able to continuously follow my dreams and achieve and be able to shift and change and restart when I want to, and also be happy about doing those things and not have regrets. All of those things build
Yeah.
confidence.
Yeah. A lot of the folks that I work with are in a place where they maybe have lost touch with their, what I call their sovereignty, which is sort of what you're describing, right? That inner knowing, that inner confidence. Um and so one of the things, like when I work with folks, is, let's get the crown back on.
Hmm.
And but also the other thing is, like, you know sometimes, like, confidence and doubt are a compliment, right? They can, because if you didn't have a little bit of doubt, you know what I mean, you wouldn't.
Hmm.
It keeps you humble, it keeps you hungry, it keeps you searching. And then but sometimes, like, we let the doubt drive the bus, you know what I'm saying? And yeah.
I think the doubt should only be the igniter to what you're going to do about it. So for me, that happened. I mean, I had doubt when I became very successful financially. I was riding this wave of capitalist success, and it got me to the mansions and all those beautiful things. And I realized the more I achieved financially, the less fulfilling was all the rest of my life. And the doubt kicked in, as you say. And the
Yeah,
doubt started asking the questions, asking the right questions that I should be asking myself. I think the confidence is what allows you to take the doubt in and say, it's a worthy question. How am I going to answer it? And if you
right.
don't have the confidence, you just shut it off, go to bed, go to work the next day, forget about it.
Yeah.
But that's what, that was the impact moment in my life. So,
Right. And so in you were formerly in finance and you
mhm.
left that career in 2016 to what it says here, prioritize social impact over profit, which is what you were talking about, right? And so you founded this organization in 2020 to do this, and you did not you did not dream small. Let's just this is a big global thing. And I would love for you to sort of share from your perspective, like what that thought process was, and then so what the organization does.
So, a little backstory. Yes, I was in finance, and like I told you, a lot of build up and a lot of catalyst moments caused me to take a break. At first, I thought I'm taking a break. I thought I'm going away for a week and coming back fresh with new thoughts, new ideas, and a new mindset. But when I went away, and I went from Toronto to Ecuador. I stayed there for a little longer. And that was the beginning of me saying, this isn't what I want to do with my life anymore. I've reached a milestone that I'm proud of, but I know going higher here is not my calling. And so my calling has always been social impact and bringing change. I feel that was my calling forever in school, even through the projects that I engaged with while I was working in finance. And so I quit. I shut everything down, and I took a few years off. And mind you, I had an addiction at the time to money. And it was very similar to addictions that I'd helped friends go through with drugs and alcoholism and other things like that. And so I realized that I'd have to kick the money to be able to be reborn in a sense, to follow my passion. And I did that. I gave away every penny.
You gave all your money away.
Literally, it was a little over $100 million. I gave all that away, and I slept. When I did that, I slept in train stations and parks and stuff for about 6 weeks. I was homeless, and it took a while for me to kind of like bounce back slowly. And during that whole process of doing all of that and getting back up on my feet, I learned a lot of life lessons that I had never thought of understanding or even being taught in any way, because I was never in a situation to appreciate those lessons. So yes, I had seen poor people. Yes, in my travels, I'd seen poverty. I'd helped, build a well here, do something there, but it was never really understanding the impact until you live it. And so that was really the moment that I thought on Compassiviste, because I thought, I have a lot of compassion. A lot of wealthy people have a lot of compassion. When they read a news story about somebody starving to death or things like that, they feel bad. Nobody's happy. Nobody reads a story like that and says, yay, somebody starved to death. I've never seen that happen. I don't think many people have. But compassion is only emotion, it's not action. So it kind of stops there. We can even cry about a story and go on as we're driving to work. We could cry about a story we hear on the radio and then get to work, and that's where it stops. We don't help the story. And I thought we need to bring the activism in. And activism for me isn't about, placards and protests and stuff like that. It's more about the actions that we take, the choices we make for those actions individually every moment. And if we can prioritize compassion through every action that we take, then we're going to be in a better place helping not only people, but the entirety of our society. And now imagine multiplying this by a large collective. It's a mindset shift of a whole ecosystem or a whole culture or a whole nation or region, even. And that was the idea behind Compassiviste. And that's how I put the word together, compassion and activism. And I put the last letter E there because activist ends with a T, but the E there is, from Latin and languages that have feminine, masculine in them. I want to remind myself and everybody who's part of Compassiviste or who interacts with Compassiviste to remember that the goodness within us comes from the feminine force that we bring to the table when we make those decisions. So if you think about a mother, she gives birth, the easiest meal she could have after that is the child that was born because it's defenseless. It will never hurt you. You can just eat that child. But no mother does that, even in the wildest of animals, because there is this innate, universally provided sentiment to care for that child. So that emotion has to persist throughout all of our decisions as we move forward. And that's really the driver behind everything that I try to do now, is to bring compassion to the core of all of our programs at Compassiviste to make a change.
There was a lot there. That was a lot. Okay, I want to just go back for a second. So you had $100 million, and you're like, and when you said you're addicted to money, I get a sense of like, okay, if like if I had $1 million, I would feel good. Now I need 2 million, a half a million, right? Now I need, oh great. And no matter how much you got, it never felt like it was enough. Like, right? Is that what you're saying? Like,
No, that's a small part of it. The worst part is not even that. The worst part is this. So you have 2 million and you think, oh, it's great. Now I can buy the Rolls Royce. Okay, but I still can't buy that house with 100 acres. So you follow that. But you reach a point at about 10 million where you really can buy most of what you want. I mean, you can't buy extravagant, crazy things, but the biggest yacht in the world, but you can almost have the experiences of everything. You can even probably rent that yacht for a week and have the experience. So you're really at a place where there isn't much you can't get. But then another problem begins there. You have everything financially and you say, okay, I tried that. I did this. I went there. I've done all of those things. What's next? Why am I trying to get to 20 million? Why am I trying to get to 50 million? What is the purpose for that? And you find an empty answer. There's no answer, but you
right.
realize that you're still doing it. So I couldn't answer myself from about 20 million onwards. I kept asking myself, Ali, why are you up at 4:30 in the morning, watching your screen? And I couldn't answer myself. Why
Yeah.
is everybody out with their families enjoying the holidays while you are pushing for that extra million? I couldn't answer myself. And then I realized that it was the power that the money gave you. It was that ability to kind of have absolute control in a sense. And then after a while, you get used to it, and then you become somewhat of a dictator. Within your organization, with friends, in your interactions with people, in many ways, it kind of gets to you. And so the pleasures don't come from what you can buy anymore. They come from what you can control.
Who
And
you can
these,
control, really.
yes,
Uh-huh.
exactly. And then your relationships deteriorate because they become very controlling and very transactional. So even the friends that you had, you start kind of buying instead of having that interaction with. And a lot of those things happen, and then it gets boring. And that's when I feel I used to see a lot of my friends transition into drugs or into alcoholism or into bigger problems because you need an outlet of some sort to put you in another world. Now, I came from a very disciplined background because of my athleticism and my spiritual lifestyle growing up all the time. So I never really broke into those spaces, but it was killing me because I couldn't. Maybe sometimes that relief of a couple of drinks could have
Yes.
helped, but I didn't have that. And so for me, it was just like very overpowering, and I knew it was bad. So that's when I thought I need a break to reconsider what I'm doing and what I really want from life.
Quick, the question is, where did the 100 million go? You said you gave it all away. Who'd you give it to?
So I gave, because I believe this was a mental health issue, and this was an issue of the mindset. Essentially, I gave it away to mental health programs. And at the time when I was giving it away, I so before Compassiviste, right now we have social media and website and all those things. They're all Compassiviste. I'm not one for social media. Even when I had all that money, I mean, I biggest house in the city and all those things. I never posted it. I never had Instagram. It wasn't me. I liked it, I enjoyed it, but I was private. I didn't care to show people where I was having dinner or what I was eating. So when this kind of broke out that I'm doing this, there was a lot of media attention in a sense through people who kind of figured out this kind of money is coming around and whatnot. So I kept it quiet, and we gave it away to a few places, essentially mostly one place, um, without really putting name and showing off and having a whole big fiasco event and things like that for giving away that kind of money. It wasn't let's have a big ball and I'm going to write a check and let the newspapers come and take a picture of it. It was very quiet, and I wanted to give away the whole thing because at first I had purposed half of my funds because I thought I'm going to use the other half to rebuild my life the way I wanted it to be. And as soon as I started thinking that way, I realized I'm doing the same thing with just less money. I'm the same person. I'm still dictating. I'm still kind of acting that way. I'm being that person. I just have a little less money, which is substantially a lot still. So at what point do I not act that way? And I realized the only point I don't act that way is when I don't have it. Because I went back to thinking about addictions, and I thought, if I'm addicted to cocaine, and I have, let's just say, for the ease of this conversation, I have a kilo of cocaine and I think that's going to kill me. Do I keep 10 grams? No, because that's still part of
Right.
to not have it at all. And so I took that analogy and I said, okay, I need to not have it at all. And I was really able to break my person into the bits that I could rebuild and be the happy person I am today through the process of living through these phases and not knowing what's happening and not knowing whether I will stay at the park or find my way out.
Wow. Okay. Now, I, the people who are listening to this, most of them are either fundraisers or have some role in raising money. And one of the things I would love to just hear your thoughts on this is like, money doesn't solve problems, right? Money's a tool. People solve problems. You see what I'm saying? Like, and I think we tend to um we overstate, or we give too much credence to money, right? Like, oh, we gotta get the people to give us the money. Money is an asset, like a lot, right? Like, and because money doesn't solve problems, because we know that, like, money
Mhm.
didn't solve your, like, the lack of money solved your problem,
Yes.
right? The release of money. But then also the other thing is that, and if you've ever read the book called The Soul of Money, but she talks
Mhm.
about, like, money is a flow, right? It's a flow. It's not a stagnant
Yes.
pond. You flow it out and it flows back in. And
Right.
I have to remind myself, like, I just paid a bill today. I'm like, it's a flow, right? Because you flew
Mhm.
it, and the reason that you were able to flow it out into the world is because you realized, well, I think, first of all, it's best to not have this, right? So I can rebuild my relationship with it. And second, like, you knew you could make more. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? Like, it was just like how. It wasn't that you couldn't, it was how. And I think that, in the nonprofit space, the scarcity mentality is pervasive, right? There's never enough. There's never enough. We're not going to have enough. We need to get this. Oh, the budget, this, that. And that kind of hangs over, when if you step into it, you can see that there's enough for everyone.
I think the first problem I encountered in the nonprofit space was the fact that, coming from the finance world, I was very well situated to understand um, how money works. In the nonprofit space, nonprofits don't have an exit strategy. When you don't have an exit strategy, all the money in the world's not enough,
Mm.
right? I mean, if you and I, Marianne, we go on a binge to buy all the houses in St. Louis, we're not going to have enough money to buy them all. But if we say our exit strategy is to buy this 1 acre and repurpose the homes to a housing project that can allow the homeless to have access to these homes and start their lives again, then we know exactly how much we need to exit from this project. We need, for example, $2 million to buy these 8 homes and put these people in there and find them jobs and give them a restart in life. That means at $2 million, we've achieved the goal that we set. Nonprofits don't have a goal. They want to solve all the problems in the world, and it never ends. When you look at, for example, the WWF, they don't have an end goal because they want to save every animal on the planet from every possible suffering. That is not a reality. That is an idealistic goal. There will always be one animal who's going to get killed.
Right.
So that being the case, there's never enough money to solve that. So what I did is I thought, okay, forget correlating money to resolution. Let's correlate people to resolution, like you said. And I think, and I speak to fundraisers sometimes and I say, don't bring me money. Money's great. I need money. I do. We need a few $1,000,000, right? For everything we want to do. But before the money, what I'd like to have is the community. Because if
Yes.
I have 5 million of you supporting me, the money that each individual puts into it and the effort that they put into it really drives change. That becomes, the money becomes the conductor, like gold for electricity. And it's beautiful how that flow happens, because the momentum and the heart behind that flow is very genuine and spiritually aligned to the momentum and the force that Compassiviste has. So, somebody may come to me, a billionaire may come to me and say, hey, you know what, I need to write $7 million off. I like what you're doing. I'm going to write you that check. When they don't bring anything along with that check, or if they do, it's something like, I want my family name on the board here, or I want this, or I kind of like the color purple. Let's throw it in there. And, these kind of friction pieces come in. That $7 million is not as helpful as you think it is. You're better off raising that $7 million with, for example, 700,000 people who give $10 each, which is not much for that group of people, but they are
Right.
bringing so much force to the table with you by their engagement and their involvement and the unity of that community, that collective is going to start making changes that are going to be obvious. Whereas money on its own can't do those things rightfully, like you said. Money
Yes.
can't get up and feed someone. Money doesn't have legs.
I love everything you just said. And one of the things I say a lot is you put the relationship first and the money will follow. So
Mhm.
if you're, reaching out to someone because they have money, as it's a little, disingenuous at work, at best, and a little manipulative at worst, right? And so, but if they're like aligned in natural relationships and that community of support,
Mhm.
there's another phrase a friend taught me: people come for the cause, they stay for the community, right? And what I love you saying, like, yeah, this beautiful. So bring me the community and the money will follow,
Mhm.
right? Yeah. Hmm.
And people bring the money, like you said. For example, I was speaking with someone and they were hearing my story for the first time. And they said, oh, I'm going to jot something down. And they did. And then 5 minutes later in the story, I'm going to jot something else down. Hold on. And they did. And then at the end of the talk, I said, what were you jotting down? And that it was so important to stop the conversation. And said, I have 4 names of people that I'm going to introduce you to, because they have the ideas that you do, and they're trying to get that together. And they have communities because they come from a field of, one of them is a musician who's done well for themselves, but now they want to transition music into something social and public versus just money making. And you're doing this amazing stuff with music at Compassiviste. So I really want to get you guys together. And so when you do get those, community aspects together, the relationships are genuine, because I never asked for it. And that person never asked for it. But there is a commonness in between that brings us together, that attracts us, right? And that's the law of attraction in the universe. I mean, it's that connectivity. And so when you can feel yourself being part of the whole, and you're trying to take the whole and guide it towards a better place that you understand to be better, and there's a lot of people who agree with you, then the leadership kind of turns into this ball of fire that's really powerfully forcing everything to a good place. And it's no longer you, it's the whole of you. You know, when Martin Luther King got up and he said, this is not right, it wasn't him alone who went to the White House and said, we need change. And they said, okay, fine, let's make change. We're going to change policy because this one gentleman thinks we need change. That never
Right.
happened.
Right.
Millions of people came together for policy to happen after all the friction and the fight back and all the problems that they went through and the assassination and everything else. Things changed. So it's never about the person. It's about you being the person who says, I'm willing to say what everybody's thinking. And then everybody says, yes, we're all thinking that. Let's, come together, let's connect, and let's make this happen. And I think that's the most powerful force where nonprofits can really shine.
Yes. I knew we were going to have a very aligned conversation. Okay. So let's talk. I'd love to give you a little bit more about what Compassiviste has been doing, how it works, and all those things.
Okay. I'll give you the short version. We have 12 programs. I really believe in the arts because I believe that change comes from expression. It starts from expression. You have to express your thoughts to build on change. And historically, this was done through paintings, through writing. I mean, the whole communist revolution happened because Karl Marx decided, and Frederick Engels decided to write a manifesto. You know, the world changed, right? And a lot of our philosophies, like you look at, for example, Christianity, the Bible. It's a book. At the end of the day, it is a book. Islam, the Quran, it is a book. At the end of the day, that is what changed the world. Two of the largest philosophies with the largest followings that constitutes more than 2/3 of the world are these two books. And people forget that that's art at the end of the day. Okay, the Lord's word, all those things, that's fine, but it came in the form of art. Even the Lord appreciates the art, right? If you're religious. So you have to take that into consideration, the expression. So we designed, and when I say we, it's not me as wearing a crown. It's basically a bunch of people at Compassiviste. So we together thought of how do we bring the context of the arts to the table for change. So we started with the idea of the whole ecosystem. So the universe is one, something from Spinoza, who, again, when they asked Einstein, what God do you believe in? He said the God of Spinoza, that God that is the oneness of everything, the connectedness of everything. And we started with that concept. And I thought of the octopus as an animal that, all of its parts are connected essentially with little brains in its tentacles and a big brain in its body, and everything feeds the organism. So I designed Compassiviste in that way. We have the music program, the film program, the art program, the kitchen, nutrition program. We have the publishing house. We have a podcast. We have the carbon labeling program. We have a sustainability TV show. We have a model product and a coffee design. We have the charity, which basically runs everything. We have the education center, which is all the education that I know I never got in my life. I have 3 master's degrees, post-grad, 2 undergrad degrees, but I was never taught the essences of life that I learned myself. So the spiritual awakening I had was never taught to me in any schooling, which I think is far more important today than learning, calculus. Not that calculus is unnecessary, but you can learn it if your field of expertise and work is going to require it. Not everybody needs to know everything to be a surgeon. Surgeons need to know that. But everybody, even the surgeon, needs to have some level of spiritual understanding of their own lives, which we don't provide that to children today. So when they grow up, they are driven by the wrong goals. They're driven by materialism. I knew a lot of people who went into dentistry, not because they loved working with teeth, but because the money was good.
Yeah.
And that kind of movement, a lot of people go into med school because the money is good, not because they care for being a doctor. And they have mental breakdowns in their field and stuff like that because they're not aligned to what they went after. So our education program is a holistic program that really brings to the core these kind of systems to balance a human for today's needs, to make the human the compassionate version best version of themselves. And we're building it in a way that it's going to be accredited, not just some fancy course that you take for 149 and there's nothing that proves anything about you, but it's accredited through the systems in the United States and other places. And so the idea is, when an employer sees on your resume you also have Compassiviste education diploma, it kind of means that this person has emotional intelligence. This person is high up there on knowing how to actually mitigate situations, come up with the right solutions, care for the community, not just think of profit maximization, because a lot of corporations are starting to change in that way. They're understanding. They're humans themselves. I mean, we're not talking about another species. Corporations are just a bunch of humans in them, and they're starting to change. So they want those things to happen. And in our other programs, like with the carbon labeling, we're trying to bring education to people and try to change the way people understand and see their everyday lives in what they're consuming and what they're purchasing and how they're living, their energy consumption, their bills, and all of those things, because we see the changes that are happening around us every day, and we need to kind of care about those things. Our animal programs, of education and awareness, but what it really brings a lot of is the activity, is the activation of people. So when you join Compassiviste, you actually start doing the change, not talking about the change, or not posting on Instagram about a beautiful quote and that's it. It has nothing to do with you anymore. It's just for the clout. No, it's about, here's what you can do about it. It's not about read it and love it. In our music program, we're trying to bring studios and music to impoverished people who have a lot of talent, who today, even in the United States, people think United States doesn't have social issues, but even in the United States, there are a lot of people who do a lot of make a lot of wrong decisions to bring their music out. I mean, public knowledge, an artist by the name of Jay-Z, went on Oprah and showed Oprah essentially where he sold drugs and what he did and everything to raise money to be able to start his music career. And lo and behold, today he is Jay-Z. Well, that's one person who connected the whole dots all the way to the top of the chain. But for that one person, there are millions of people in jail, dead, injured in so many different ways, right? So instead of having those kind of issues, let's bring compassion into the table. Let's purpose, goodness for those things. And then let's make music for a cause. Today, many celebrity artists, they're out there, making billion-dollar tours. And you don't see a banner for anything on their tours. You don't see help children, save a kid, save an animal, do this, do that in their shows. You don't see on your ticket that you buy 20% of your ticket cost went to this cause or anything. Music's not purposed to the social cause anymore. Whereas Heal the World, Michael Jackson, Live Aid, those concerts back in last century were kind of where people said, I have a platform, I have music, I have talent, I'm going to use it as a momentum for good change. So I'm trying to revive all of those things in the publishing house, in the film industry, instead of pouring money into entertainment films, kind of like James Bond #12 or Fast and Furious #40. Let's divert some of that money into social impact films that we all love to watch and that make a difference. It brings conversation to the table. It makes us change the ways we act and makes us understand the problems from a more holistic perspective. So that's really what Compassiviste is about. And then to top all of this off, we're putting all our eggs in one basket, in the sense that I'm not big on social media. I'm not big on this distant type of connections with people. We're going to have an annual convention. It's going to be the world's first compassion convention. And the idea is to bring all the nonprofits and all the for-profits that care, that want to make a change in the world. You could be for-profit like a brand, Patagonia, for example, that is trying to bring sustainability in the clothing industry. You could be a nonprofit like the WWF that we spoke about earlier. You can all join into this program where people can actually walk through the doors and experience tangibly what you're doing and engage with you. And we'll have the film festival, we'll have the music fest with concerts with our artists and other celebrity artists who want to join our programs. We'll have a written word, a spoken word space where, we promote these things, we fund them, we allow them to grow. And slowly I think it will grow to a place where when we shift cities every year, we can, 1 year we'll be in Vegas, 1 year we'll be in Paris, 1 year we'll be in Cairo. And the idea is to tangibly be able to connect all those people that we meet at all those different places over, say, a 5-10 year span, to have this global reach where people can feel and understand the Compassiviste movement, and to be a part of it and know that as a part of it, they could do something.
I'm in. That sounds amazing. And I'm just thinking about everything you said, and it's coming back to how we open this conversation of the compassion and the activism, right? And those bringing those things together, because one without the other, right? Like, for instance, your Jay-Z story, that was activism, right? I mean, he was actively like creating, you know what I mean, solving a problem. It with more compassion, he wouldn't have to, right, like, to create so that his activism and they can act with compassion, and are I just love the blending of that, and that you're creating a compassion convention, like creating a space where we can step into that, and because that's truly what, like, everyone is working for, right? Like, just to
Mm,
create a more compassionate, grateful, loving
right.
world. And in my journey over the last 5, 6, 7 years of stepping into more of that and tapping into um the kind of this spiritual realm of, right, and like, what is my legacy, what am I here to do, um and the more we step into that, like, I guess you can't go wrong when you lead with compassion. That's all.
Mhm.
Right.
And you're absolutely right. And you know what? I want to add to that, when you brought the spiritual journey, I started out thinking of all the choices that I've made and all the choices that I can make in the spaces that I was. And I was thinking, this is very much like quantum physics right now, because here I am and I can choose where I am. Just like in quantum physics, where an object can be in two different places at the same time, and it's literally the choice of where it wants to be when you capture it, right? And in my sense, I was thinking, I can be this person that I want to be, or I can simultaneously, I could be this other person who's driving this financial powerhouse. Where do I see myself? Where do I want to choose to be? And in every decision of all these multiverses that could be the possibilities based on every choice that I make and every action I take and every force that flows and changes the universe around me, which one do I want to choose? And I thought, that's a lot of choice and that's a lot of difficult choices, but how do I facilitate it? And, you know, I kind of went back and I thought, if I, in my modular brain that thinks, differently in every circumstance, if I can somehow prioritize compassion to stick in there all the time as the driver of my decisions, then I have this common denominator in my choice making that will always select that identical best universe that I want to be in continuously.
right.
And that is how my quantum realm kind of got guidance. It said, my mindset to myself, we're always going to choose with compassion. We're always going to start here, not here. And, and then flow from there. And that really, it's not my theory. It's kind of like building on Buddha, so to speak, because, you want to do what's best in the whole and not in the self. And so when you think that way, without being religious or anything, just taking that concept of the modular mind, you no longer need to think about, hey, I'm going to go into the store, I need to put my economic mind on because I need to bargain, or I see a lion down the street, I need to put my, fight or flight mind on to decide what I'm going to do. No, I'm just going to keep my compassion mind in every circumstance, and it's going to guide me in the best way. And
Right.
that's really how it happened.
Yeah, I agree. It's so interesting too, because I coach a group of people, and yesterday I was talking about quantum physics and moving those principles into fundraising. And one of the things is the entanglement and the interconnectedness, which is exactly what you were talking about. As you're speaking, I was thinking of that. Um, and the idea of, there's lots of ways to solve a problem, right? And which is different than like a Newtonian physics where this is the way you
Mhm.
solve, right? There's a lots of different approaches to people. There's lots of ways of looking at, an issue that to solve an issue. I want to say one more thing before we close, because I think what you said was really interesting about an exit strategy. Um, and I hear what you're saying about, like, we have, sometimes I will call them visions, these big visions, and then in missions. And the organizations I resonate with the most are the organizations that eventually want to put themselves out of business. So
Mhm.
sometimes when people are like, we've been around 150 years, and they want to say that, I'm like, y'all haven't solved that yet,
Exactly.
and one of the organizations I work with is the Foster Adoptive Care Coalition, and they're celebrating their 35th year, not celebrating, but they are their 35th anniversary, and they have a plan, right, for what, and it's the next 5 years of what they're going to do to serve every kid in foster care who needs it, and eventually then have not a need for this organization. And so what would it look like, and so this is a more, right, like, when people say there's the cure for cancer, well, there's no cure for cancer. There's about a million, right? There's all these different cures. There's no one cure. And or you could say, but we are going to solve this problem with these people, and this is our plan to do it, and how long we think it'll take, how many people we need to do it, and how much money we need to do it. And like, they're presenting this, and it's like, wow, that's something
Mhm.
you can like get into. Um, and like, so what is the exit strategy? Like,
Right.
when do you know it's solved? Or
You're
because
right.
I, without opening up too much, because sometimes I think the choices we make, or because we're solving these lower level issues of like,
Mhm.
oh, like feeding people, but not really addressing the issue of why are people hungry in the first place,
Yes.
and why, and what is the distribution that is causing this, so as long as there's still, as long as we're not fixing or looking at that, because those are often more nuanced and complicated
Mhm.
conversations. But it's easy to say somebody's hungry, let's feed them.
And you
So
know
there will
what? To
always be
every
hungry people.
Yes, but and to every organization that thinks I'm going to go into the hunger resolution, space and resolve this, it's a little delusional and egotistical for me when they think that the organization itself can resolve or solve the problem. I think when you come into a space and you say, okay, the hunger issue, like you said, is much greater, it's much grander. It's not about why, these four people who are hungry that we have to feed and then it's over. No, it's about why did this happen in the first place? And you can only resolve those with huge collectives. There's no one corporation in the world today, even not even Apple, can put its resources to solving hunger and be able to, because you feed people on a daily basis for billions of dollars, and then what? You need to start, teaching them how to fend for themselves, teaching them how to make their own meals, teaching them how to find their own food, right? And to change the systems. To do that, you're moving economies. Now you're getting into economic games. Now, to do the economic games, you're getting into politics. When you get into politics, you're getting into social, like it gets so huge
Yeah.
that it becomes a transnational issue to resolve. But it can be done. How can it be done? When there's a big enough momentum to do it, not one nonprofit or one corporation. And then really quickly, the other problem for me is a lot of these nonprofits, unfortunately, are there for self-sufficiency before and beyond anything else. And I'll give you an example. We're right now working with the University of Sheffield in Jordan in a refugee camp, because we have an idea between myself and Professor Ryan, who brought hydroponics to the camp, because this is a United Nations camp, right? And they have poverty in there, they have hunger, and I don't understand how the United Nations has hunger in its camp. Like, these are tents you built, you have to have enough food for them, but they do. So Professor Ryan goes in there, teaches those farmers, the Syrian farmers, how to, they're already farmers, how to use hydroponics to basically make their food. And so now they're eating. But we asked them, we said, so what's the transition phase? Like, where are these people going into society? Oh, we don't do that. We don't do transition as the UN. We just put the tents up and we care for them. Until what? Until, maybe their country fixes and then they go back or something. We don't know. We don't know. We're just here to take care of the tent. You know, we fence this area. We have this farm of people that we take care of. That's it. That's all we do. So there's no exit strategy there. For as long as there's conflict, there will be those tents. I came in and I said, okay, no problem. These guys are farmers. All we need to do is raise a little bit of money, buy them a land, put prefab homes in there, give them a communal area where they could do their agriculture and their farming, sell it to the market. They make revenue. They can self-sustain. All we need to do is give them that push. How much does that come up to? About $250,000. That's it for every portion of 3,000 people. You know, what's 250? There are people buying cars for $250,000. You know,
Right.
what's $250,000 to the UN? But there is no concept of that. But then you look at the expense of the camp and the staff and the management and the medical and all these things are in the millions. And you say to yourself, take a quarter out of that and transition these people over to a new life so that this child who's 14, who's never seen beyond the walls or the perimeter of the camp, can actually get an education. So a lot of nonprofits are in that space. They're in the space of, this is my income. This is how I earn money. I'm the manager of a nonprofit. So my $8,000 salary or $20,000 salary a month comes from having this problem. And that goes back to my finance days, because I was in trading and I was mostly in Forex and gold. And to tell you a little something, gold goes up and down, not because, you know, it's fun, but because of volatility in the world. So there's a war breaking out, gold goes up. There's a huge earthquake or disaster, gold goes up. So what is Ali and everybody else in Ali's shoes doing? They're sitting there praying to their God that there's an earthquake this morning or some country terrorizes another country so that I can make money on gold. Because if it stays stable for 2 years, I'm broke.
Mm,
And that's the same thing a lot of nonprofits are doing. It's just bad energy.
yeah.
So at Compassiviste, we're trying to bring everybody together. So even that bad energy kind of gets diluted into all the goodness, and then the goodness can shine.
I think that's, yes. Thank you. Because these are things that I think our industry is slowly waking up to and
Mhm.
really starting to understand. So I appreciate you bringing that, and also your compassionate activism coming together to create something. I truly hope one day I'm setting the intention. I am at the compassion convention, so I'm gonna get on
I
your
will,
list
I
or
will,
whatever.
I
Is
will
that
personally, I will
I
personally make sure that you
I
come
would,
there.
because that sounds like the most amazing transformative experience.
It
I
will
want to
be.
thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else you would like us to know before we close this out?
I would like everyone to know how amazing you are for making this space that actually brings these conversations to light, because I think it's through the people listening and understanding the ways that you project all of these thoughts that will bring change in the world. So thank you for being you and doing what you do.
Thank you. And thank you for being here and sharing this with me today. And we have all your, I know you're not big on social media, but we have some links and to your
Yeah,
website, and they're all going to be in the show notes. So people want to check out more of what you're doing. And the website is really cool to look at, and there's a lot of stuff going on in there. So you may want to jump in and take a look around. And thanks again for being on this episode of The Influential Nonprofit.
thank you, Marianne.